The 22nd of June, 1941. With 134 divisions at full fighting strength and 73 more divisions for deployment behind the front, Nazi Germany, under the codename Operation Barbarossa, invades the Soviet Union, its ally in the war against Poland. Hitler considers the invasion as part of his plan to provide the German nation with Lebensraum, meaning living space, and an opportunity to destroy communism, which he loathes. The Soviet Union sees catastrophic military losses, and millions of its soldiers fall into German captivity, where they are subjected to starvation, disease, and brutal treatment. Thousands of them decide to switch sides, join the German army, and fight against Stalin and his regime. One of the Russian collaborators with Nazi Germany becomes a woman who, with her machine gun, will execute 1,500 innocent men, women, and children. Her name is Antonina Makarova. Antonina Makarova was born on the 1st of March 1920 in the small village of Malaya Volkovka, located in the Smolensk Governorate, then part of the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic. Makarova was the youngest of 7 children, and her birth surname was Panfilova. When she started first grade at the age of 7, Antonina was too shy to tell the teacher her name. Her classmates, assuming her surname was Makarova based on her father's name, provided that information instead. This mistake led to her name being officially recorded as Antonina Makarovna Makarova in all subsequent documents, including school records and her passport. For unknown reasons, her parents never corrected the error. As a teenager, Makarova moved with her parents to Moscow. After finishing school, she enrolled in a medical technical school with the intention of becoming a doctor. The Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939, when Germany invaded Poland. Poland found itself fighting a two-front war when it was invaded by the Soviet Union from the east on the 17th of September. Warsaw officially surrendered to the Germans on the 28th of September, and one day later, in accordance with a secret protocol to their non-aggression pact, Germany and the Soviet Union partitioned Poland. On Sunday, the 22nd of June 1941, under the codename Operation Barbarossa, Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union. 3 million German soldiers were reinforced by Finnish, Romanian, Hungarian, Italian, Slovak, and Croatian troops. Within weeks, German divisions conquered the Baltic republics of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. For Nazi Germany, this attack was not an ordinary military operation. The war against the Soviet Union was a war of annihilation between German fascism and Soviet communism, a racial war between German Aryans and subhuman Slavs and Jews. After the German invasion, Makarova volunteered for the front, serving as a canteen worker and nurse. In the autumn of 1941, she was among the survivors of the Vyazma operation, a critical battle that occurred as part of Operation Barbarossa. Taking place near the strategic city of Vyazma, west of Moscow, the operation saw German forces encircle 4 Soviet armies. This maneuver effectively cut off vital Soviet supply lines and communications, crucial for defending Moscow. Despite fierce resistance, the Soviet troops were largely destroyed or captured, resulting in a devastating loss. After her unit was defeated, Makarova hid in the forest for several days, but was eventually captured by the Germans. Sometime later, she and a soldier named Nikolai Fedchuk escaped from captivity, and for several months they wandered together, trying to break out of the German encirclement. The combination of isolation, fear of the enemy, and the uncertainty of survival left Makarova feeling desperate and vulnerable, leading her to initiate an intimate relationship with Fedchuk as a means of survival. In January 1942, the pair reached a village where Fedchuk's wife and children lived. Despite Makarova's pleas, Fedchuk decided to part ways with her. Makarova stayed in the village, and at first local women offered her some assistance, but their attitude soon turned negative due to her promiscuous behavior, forcing her to leave. She then wandered through various villages, never staying in one place for long, and eventually ending up in the newly established Lokot Republic. The Lokot Republic was a self-governing autonomous region established in October 1941. Located in the western part of Russia, it was one of the few areas where the Germans allowed a degree of local governance. Led by Russian collaborators, the Republic served as a puppet state, cooperating closely with Nazi forces. The administration, largely made up of former Soviet officials who had switched allegiances, oversaw a brutal regime that targeted partisans and Jews, aligning with the Nazis' oppressive policies. Wandering through the Lokot region, Makarova quickly ran out of money, and in a desperate attempt to survive, turned to prostitution. When questioned by the Germans, she began to criticize the Soviet government, and eventually volunteered to join the Lokot Auxiliary Police. Given her previous experience with machine guns, Makarova was assigned a Maxim machine gun to carry out the executions of Soviet partisans and their families, who had been sentenced to death. The Germans, unwilling to participate in the executions themselves, were more than willing to entrust her with this grim task. As a reward for her involvement, they provided her with a room at the local stud farm, where she also kept the machine gun. At her first execution, Makarova appeared calm, but could not bring herself to shoot. The Germans gave her alcohol to steady her nerves, and after that, she no longer needed it for subsequent executions. Occasionally after firing, she would approach the bodies, and if any were still moving, she would shoot them in the head again to ensure they were dead. She was often ordered to execute groups of up to 27 people at a time, as that was the capacity of the partisan holding cells. There were days when she carried out death sentences 3 times in a single day. In total, Makarova executed around 1,500 people, though the identities of only 168 have been fully documented. Most of her victims were Soviet partisans, their family members, and civilians, including women, the elderly, and children. For her ruthless mass executions, she became infamously known as Tonka the Machine-Gun Girl. For each execution, Makarova was paid 30 Reichsmarks, an equivalent of around 200 United States dollars today. Her payment of 30 Reichsmarks was later compared to the infamous 30 pieces of silver. After the executions, she would take clothes she fancied from the corpses, justifying it by saying, "Why let good things go to waste?" However, she often complained that the clothes were stained with large blood spots and riddled with bullet holes. Witnesses recalled that at night, Makarova would frequently visit the local stud farm, where the Germans had set up a prison for those condemned to death. She would closely examine the prisoners, as if already deciding which belongings she would take after their execution. Makarova frequently visited the local music club, where she indulged in heavy drinking, and along with other local girls, engaged in intimate relationships with policemen and German soldiers, often for money. She kept her distance from the other girls, avoiding close friendships. Her reckless lifestyle eventually led to her being sent to a German rear hospital in the summer of 1943 for treatment of syphilis. This hospitalization unintentionally saved her from capture by the partisans and the Red Army, who liberated Lokot in September of the same year. While she was staying in the rear, Makarova started an affair with a German soldier, who secretly smuggled her in his convoy to Ukraine and then to Poland. After the German soldier was killed, Makarova was sent by the Germans to a concentration camp in Königsberg in East Prussia. When the Red Army captured the city in 1945, she assumed the identity of a Soviet nurse using a stolen military ID card, claiming to have served in the 422nd Medical Battalion from 1941 to 1944. This strategy allowed her to secure a position as a nurse in a Soviet mobile hospital, where she met a young Jewish sergeant, Viktor Ginsburg, who had been wounded during the city's storming, and whose entire family had been murdered during the Holocaust. Within a few days, they got married, and Antonina adopted her husband's last name. After the war, the couple settled in the Belarusian town of Lepo, and as war veterans, they were highly respected in society. Their photos were displayed in the local museum, they were honored with various awards, and Antonina even spoke to schoolchildren about her memories of the war. Neither her husband, their 2 daughters, nor even family friends knew her true identity. In 1961, Makarova secured a job in the sewing workshop of the Lepo garment factory, where she eventually rose to the position of quality control inspector. Her husband and both daughters worked at the same factory. Makarova was regarded as a responsible and diligent worker, and her photograph often appeared on the local wall of honor. A personnel officer at the factory described her as reserved, quiet, and someone who drank alcohol in moderation at social gatherings. The KGB investigators faced significant challenges in tracking down Antonina Makarova, as the surviving residents could only provide limited information about her. The search intensified after her former commander was captured and revealed her name. In total, 250 women named Antonina Makarova, matching her age and description, were investigated. However, the real Makarova was listed in official records under her birth name, Panfilova. The breakthrough came when her brother, who worked for the Ministry of Defense, disclosed in a questionnaire that one of his sisters, who had used the surname Makarova since childhood, was actually born Panfilova. This detail caught the attention of the authorities, but they hesitated to arrest the respected war veteran without solid evidence. Investigators began closely monitoring Makarova, gathering evidence, and questioning her under the pretext of awarding her a medal. When asked to provide details about her unit and commanders, she cited poor memory due to the passage of time, which only increased their suspicions. In July 1978, a witness identified her as Tonka the Machine-Gun Girl, and another witness confirmed her identity during a staged pension recalculation appointment. Antonina Makarova was finally arrested in September 1978. She accepted her arrest calmly, believing she would face only a short sentence due to the wartime circumstances. Makarova was convinced her actions were driven by the harsh conditions of war and saw no reason for severe punishment. Her husband, devastated by her arrest, appealed to the Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev and international organizations, drawing attention to her case. Despite this, in November 1978, Makarova was found guilty of murdering 168 people whose identities were confirmed. She was sentenced to death by shooting, a surprising verdict given her exemplary post-war behavior and the fact that 1979 was declared the Year of the Woman in the Soviet Union. Upon hearing the verdict, Makarova admitted her guilt and accepted the sentence calmly, while her husband broke down in tears. She appealed for clemency, requesting her death sentence be commuted to imprisonment, but all appeals were denied. Antonina Makarova was 59 years old when she was executed by shooting on the 11th of August, 1979. After the death of Joseph Stalin in March 1953, she was one of only 3 women legally executed by the Soviet Union. There were no tears shed for Antonina Makarova.
Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.